My dad used to always tell his buddies that, you know, I can't believe Mark goes out there all day and he doesn't catch anything and he says he has a good time. And that's me. I love getting in a fish's brain, and I love trying to figure them out. And when you try, a lot of times it doesn't happen. But when it does, when you do catch an 8 and a 9 and lots of 3s and it just works out perfect, it's one of the best feelings that an outdoor sportsman can have. It's that day that that old buck has slipped by you, round behind you, smelled you, and then that one time whenever everything lines up just right. Same way with a fisherman, man. When it works out and you hit them and you land on them and it works and you try and you try and you try and you figure out the deal, it's like a banana split to me. It's a good time. The fall of the year is the time when we got these cooler nights, the shad start moving up to the surface, and so everything is just kind of up in the water column, and I thought we fill a boat full of crankbaits and get out there and we would land on them. A little small one on that piece of wood. Feels real cold to the touch. Another little one. All little rats in here though. What's up with all these little ones today? Yeah, there was a lot of fish. They were just smaller fish, you know. We would not win a Big 5 tournament today, but we could have a fish fry. Kind of fish Andy Montgomery and Kevin Van Dam, those guys catch, little bitty guys. That is nothing. That water is that deep. Fall fishing. It's so weird in this trench. I mean, the fish are really cold to the touch. They're not biting where they've been being. They're in that deep of water. I'm catching them on a bait that I planned on using as a trailer for a swim jig today. That's fishing. You make adjustments. You fish the conditions that's been given to you. You do everything you can, utilize all your outdoor resources. Strengths and instincts, and you keep fishing and fishing and fishing, and then all of a sudden you pick up a bag with Kevin Van Dam's picture on it and they just all go, it's Kevin Van Dam. It's Kevin Van Dam. Y'all all just love KVD, don't you? What is it about him? I know he builds a really good signature series rod, but what else is it? That wasn't what I wanted to do my show on, so I didn't like that whole deal, but we did put together a good little game plan, and it came together. They were just smaller fish. Everything worked out. The fish were doing what I thought. I thought they would be, you know, schooling and schooled up really good on bait, and they were. They just weren't the size that I was looking for. Typical fall. It's feast or famine sometimes in the fall. You can fish and fish and fish, and if you don't get around the bait and where the fish are feeding on the bait, you don't do any good. We landed on that, just the wrong size. So I had another lake in mind that I have caught them in the fall where they're feeding on shad really good, and they school up on this one creek arm that's got a lot of trees on the points, and I have caught them in that area before. So the bad thing about it was there was no wind projected, and it was supposed to be fairly sunny, so I was like, oh man, not gonna have the right scenario, but I thought we scratch and claw enough, you know, we can come up with something. So we got out there, we were there fairly early. I wanted to take advantage of that little bit of low light. Man, they just, I could see a few schooling, and I knew that somewhere, if we just kept fishing, looking at the electronics, looking with our eyes for surface activity, we would find some fish feeding somewhere. If you can get one to fire, a lot of times you can get more. But they'll just sit there just kind of inactive for a while until something changes, like the hair on the back of their neck. And sure enough, I kept going around where I'd caught them before. They weren't there. Not this again. If you ever get in a situation where you've caught them in this situation or this scenario before, don't just give up because it's not happening that particular day out, because you're going to be disappointed a whole lot. But if you keep thinking, run the gamut with the baits, look at your electronics, really let your outdoor instincts kick in, something will come about. That ain't no little one. Maybe it is. We came around that point. I was like, man, didn't really work out. And then I got a glimpse of them on my forward imaging. As soon as I saw them, I'm like, here we go. Oh my. He knocked 2 foot of slack in my line right there. Every now and then you mess around with those little ones, you get a donkey. As soon as we caught that one, it was lights out the rest of the day. We ignited the school. I think, I mentioned wind. I was telling the camera guys, I was like, guys, we just need a little bit of wind. Sure enough, good Lord gave us a breeze at our back, blowing right down the end of that creek. Katie barred the door the rest of the day. It'd be like one of them high-powered bass pros, get down here and pose, look pretty. No, we don't have time for that. I picked up a 5XD, which is, that bait runs 15 foot, and you want a crankbait that's kind of touching, you know, digging a little bit. I saw some isolated trees out there in like 14, so I said if I could hit one of those trees or I could dig the bottom in that 13, if I could just catch one, I think we can light them up. That just goes to show that those big ones mixed right in there with those small ones. This is what I absolutely live for, is fishing offshore and finding schools of fish like this. You can make so much hay in a tournament. When you put 5 in the boat. I guess we're just gonna have to catch a bunch and hopefully trigger a big one every now and then. Man, that Signature Series rod feels good. old big crankbait rod. You know, we fished down this bank and saw a few. The wind started blowing and got back in this pocket where there was a lot of, you know, all the wind had come to this area, and then I saw some on the forward imaging. There just seemed to be stacked up in this one little area. It's kind of like when we were catching those little bitty ones. The other day we fished and fished and fished, and all the shad were in one little area, and therefore all the fish were feeding on them right there. And that's fall fishing, man. You just fish and fish, and you'll find the activity zone. You'll find you know, run the gamut with the baits. That's the great thing about Strike King. We have a crankbait to fit every situation. And just keep hunting and pecking, and you'll find the right area, the right bait. And when you do, in the fall, you can load up on them. Somewhere in this lake right here, there is a load of shad and a school of fish feeding on them, maybe 2 or 3, but somewhere there's an activity zone. There is the active part of the lake. It's alive, it's happening. And that's what we stumbled up on that lake. I was prepared to pond hop, lake hop, go from one lake to the other. There's lots of little state lakes in Arkansas. I just love this area. It's full of wildlife. We hit the nail on the head right out of the gate this morning. Man, this feels like a big one. I got a glint, oh yeah. Can you say, Walter? Kind of gave up. Been feeding. Again, folks, look at that skin hook right there. One little bitty hook on the back of the treble, and look at that rod, how it flexes. Just right. When that fish served, he went, I thought it was a striper. And I ended up getting him in one little bitty hook. And look here, because of the right rod, you get to put your hands on him. Look at that. Can y'all see that? Barely. If that rod is not just absolutely perfect. Look, I had him with this other hook, and he pulled out trying to surge too hard, but that other hook kept him, stayed in there because it just right. Oh man, look at that big girl. Wow. 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 Woo! Sometimes you'll catch that fish that you couldn't catch with any other bait. Normally in a brush pile, they're seeing a spinnerbait or they're seeing a jig or a worm or something like that. But a crankbait with a wobble in the fall, sometimes, even in the summer, sometimes you gotta trigger a bass. He's sitting there inactive, just like today. Those fish were there, they were inactive. I tried throwing a worm in there just to trigger something, just to catch something, thinking that the natural presentation is what they wanted. I didn't take no for an answer. I kept throwing that crankbait thinking, even if the hooks just hit a tail wrong or changed his mood a little bit and triggered one fish that I could ignite the school, that's cranking. Don't be scared to throw a crankbait in wood. Don't be scared to throw that 1.5 in a lay down where you'd normally throw a jig. If you go on a fishing trip and you're banking your whole day on where you caught them the day before, don't do that. Go out. If they're not where you caught them the day before, move around. Use your electronics. See if you can see some. Try to play the wind. Look at where the wind's blowing. Change your baits up. Change colors. Change techniques. If you're catching them on a crankbait one day, throw a shadowlicious, throw a swim bait, throw a football jig, throw a spoon. And see, now I didn't make 10 cranks. Made 10 casts before that, and then now I didn't make 10 cranks, and I catch one. It's that little fish and this fish, it's like, what are they doing? Are they feeding? They're in a frenzy. They're like, what's going on? Those big ones come up off of the bottom and they suspend and they go, what's going on? It's kind of like when somebody yells fight at the skating ring. because that wind-blown point or little hump in the back of a creek, you know, like what we got right here, that's where the shad will load up, so that's where the fish will load up. Did y'all see that? He bit me. When I was setting the hook, it wasn't just because I was trying to be a movie star. I really was getting a bite. Good tournament fish. And this one right here is right. It is right. Come on up in here, big girl. That can equal that. You just gotta go hunt them up. Well, one tip that I can give anybody for fishing the fall is think high in the water column. Think top water, KVD jerkbait, rage swimmers, swim jigs, baits that you can work up in the water column, because that's exactly what fish do. They love the new surface temperature. You know, it's been hot all year, and they've been down there in the thermocline, or they've been down in a brush pile, or they've been down deep where they can get the shade, they can get the coolness from the mud in the bottom of the lake. Those nights start turning cooler. You start getting those nights in the 60s and then in the 50s. The days start changing. Stratifying of the lake water that they get in the summertime that puts them in a funky mood, all of a sudden they get that up in the water column type feeling. The reason why is because the bait gets up. The bait is normally down there deep. The bluegill, the shad. Things start coming back around just like they do in the spring. 2.5, 2.25. But the good thing about it is he kept things going. It doesn't take a big fish to get things going. Have a sack full of Strike King 7-inch finesse worms, green pumpkin, plum, and a Strike King 1/8 ounce and 3/16 ounce shaky head. Because if I weren't here in this show trying to catch them on a crankbait, that's my go-to. It's like a banana split to a bass. I throw out there and I try to catch them on a shaky head, and all that does is just wakes everything up. It changes the mood. It gets things in a different frame of mind. It gets those fish. And a lot of times, like when I'm ledge fishing, I'll put that shaky head down as soon as I catch one. And I'll pick up whatever I want to catch them on. Like right now, I want to catch them on a crankbait. Oh, I lost him. See, he thought I was being a little boastful too. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Ruh-roh. Oh my gosh. Did y'all see that? How he protected that? Look at the end of that line. That fish is surging. I got him with one hook, and it's a full-grown one. Ugh. Look at that rod surging. Now this is a big fish, and he's pulling me right at the boat. Ah, it's a monster. Can you say hammer time? Uh-huh. That's where the tip of that rod really makes a difference. This thing is just, I mean, look at the skin. That's it. That is a beautiful fish. Wow. Wow, I wish I had some scales. Full grown. When I took out this morning, I laid a sexy dog on my deck. I put a swim bait on. I think I had a red eye. I was ready for any type of scenario. And that's what you need to do. You need to keep an open mind. There's been a lot of times where I get down in my rod locker 8 or 10 times in a day because I didn't have what I anticipated the fish were gonna be doing. But man, do that. Keep an open mind. I tell people to run the gamut with the baits and really, whenever things not happen, close your eyes, just think, listen, get in tune with your body of water, get in tune with the weather, what the moon is, you know, think about all these different types of scenarios and what you've tried already, and one of these times you'll come out with the thought, it'll hit you, and man, when that happens, pretty awesome.